Okay, we are live. I'm going to stop this recording and I'm going to start it again. Okay, we are live. I'm going to stop this recording. That's me, two of me. That would be too many, my husband would agree. Okay. On YouTube, can you guys hear us? If you guys could please type yes, that would be fabulous. I'm getting messages from all over the world.
Yeah, you got some technology on the other side of the screen there that you're managing.
Yeah, it's pretty fun when it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so YouTube is live. Ah, Lana, thank you for letting us know that it is working. Beautiful. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm your host, Carol Morgan. I am based in Spearfish in the Black Hills, and today I have the pleasure to be speaking with another person from Spearfish. Josh, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you as well, Carol. Hi to everybody from around the world. It's
Thank
awesome.
you, thank you, thank you. So, you guys, the reason why we are getting together here with Josh is because I don't know Josh very well. We actually just met, and this is only our second face-to-face conversation. So, this is going to be a wonderful opportunity, Josh, to get to know you better.
Thank you.
We're going to start with your story because the story that you have to tell is very similar to a lot of people's that start with, I was living a certain way. I had a point in time where I had a difficulty that completely changed my life, and now I'm dedicating my life to that consciously. So, if you would please introduce yourself and tell us your story, that would be a wonderful place to start.
Yeah, you got it. So I'm Josh. I live in Spearfish in the Black Hills and lived multiple places. I went to college here, met my girlfriend here. Then we moved to Colorado together and did the Denver thing, the big city thing for about 9 years. And during that time, I was working in the fitness industry and I was personal training there at a gym and new to the industry, just having fun with it. And then things ramped up pretty quickly. I met a mentor who was like, there's there's opportunity here in the industry for you to expand what you're doing. And so I started my own fitness coaching company, built that from the ground up and ran that for 7 years. And we had a team that I was managing, and we were in multiple locations through Denver. And I was running all over the city, multiple appointments and meeting with people every day. And then my wife and I got married. We had a kid, and it was just us three in Denver as far as family goes. And we felt kind of isolated in that way. And we were both really stressing ourselves out. I mean, that's where either you're living in stress mode or you're not. And a lot of our society is. And we found ourselves in that place as a team, her and I. And for me, I wound up getting a lung infection. And I didn't know at that time how much I was pushing myself. I kind of did. I knew I was hustling, and that whole mindset of hustle mode was what I was living in at that time because I had a mentor who was, pushing me on the sidelines to be more and do more. And uh, when I got this lung infection, I entered into the Western medicine model and with hope, thinking that we would knock it out quick. And at that point, when I finally decided to go to the hospital, I was really far down the wrong path. At that point, I was going to bed at night with a fever, knowing that I would wake up in a few hours with uncontrollable chills. But I needed some rest, so I had to endure. And um, at one point, I was like, all right, I need to go to the hospital. Something's going on here. So I looked at my wife and I was like, Britt, I need to go to the hospital. And She kind of laughed it off because she knew who I am and not really wanting to go to the hospital for anything. We were coaching holistically and had a great naturopath. And I was like, no, babe, something's wrong. I need to go to the hospital. So we went in and the gauntlet began. And I ran through blood draws and CAT scans and chest x-rays for months. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. And I went through 2 rounds of antibiotics. I talked to a pulmonologist. Nobody could identify what was happening, but I was sick. I was obviously sick. I lost a lot of weight and I looked gone. And so at one point, after 6 months of being sick, a doctor sat me down and he said, we're diagnosing this as no, as walking pneumonia, but that's not what this is. I've seen that on people, and this is something different. We can't help you anymore. And that was when I hit the dead end with that model. And being in the fitness realm, I mentioned I had a really great naturopath, and he was the whole reason my wife was able to rebalance herself to get pregnant and have a kid and start a family. So I trusted this person, and I went to them, and I found a functional medicine doctor at the same time, which is, for those of you who don't know, we have MDs on one end of the spectrum and naturopaths on the other end of the spectrum. And in the middle is the functional medicine doctor who can read the blood work and everything from the MD, but they heal holistically and naturally, like the naturopath. So I worked with these two, and using some science and some logic, we were like, all right, obviously you got a lung infection. According to your numbers and blood draws, it's bacterial, and it's probably deep in your lungs. That's why the antibiotics can't get to it. And so the functional medicine doctor told me, we're going to run a self experiment now. And if you get worse, we'll deal with it then. But my theory is that you'll get better. And he said, I want you to start doing some oxygen therapy. And I had kind of heard of breath work at this point. Wim Hof was on the fringes with his amazing feats and becoming mainstream. And so it was a whisper to me at that point. And so I took that information to my naturopath, and he said, all right, have you heard of breath work? He taught me one breathwork technique. I was using a nebulizer, and I was doing oxygen therapy. So I was doing breathwork, nebulizer, and oxygen therapy in a hyperbaric chamber, which is just a pressurized tube that you sit in, wearing the oxygen tube in your nose, and it compresses and condenses the oxygen saturation. So those three things, doing religiously for just 2 months. By the end of 2 months, I was totally healed. I had been sick for 6 months, and we were not knowing what was going on, and it was scary. And my wife and I were like crying, and they were looking for cancers, and it was really scary because we were in the dark. And then working with these other two natural healers, I found some light, and I was off on a rampage of fixing myself, and it worked. And it's within 2 months, I healed my lung infection. I gained all my weight back. Doesn't matter what kind of infection it was. I healed it. It's gone. It's done. And at that point, I was like, holy cow, what else is possible? All I did was breathe right, breathe a lot, but I was just breathing and getting oxygen into my lungs, because the theory was that with two types of bacteria, one being anaerobic and one being aerobic, one will die in the presence of oxygen. So blasting it with oxygen was what worked. And I was blown away at that point with the power just from that one experience, what we can do with our breath to the physical body. So I started studying it more, diving into all the rabbit holes and learning from teachers. I started teaching it to my team, and we were teaching it to clients across the city, mostly for stress management at that point, as I was still absorbing and learning. And then shutdown happened, and that by that time we had moved back to South Dakota, and I was running the company back and forth. But I was studying breath work, learning what we can do to use it to hack into the emotional, the mental realm, rewire thought patterns and neurology in the brain, use it then to layer into spirituality and transcendence and higher connection and consciousness and levels of depth from that angle. So for me, it started with healing myself in the physical body, but I've used it since then as a tool for myself and for many others to navigate the rest of this human experience.
Amazing. I really appreciate those kinds of stories because you hear it time and time again. Again, people are living a certain way, and then they come across something that they can't believe that the rest of the world isn't aware of. And then you become passionate about it and you have to share it. I have a
Mm-hmm.
similar story, Josh, that in that I was in corporate America for almost 30 years and I was working myself to death, basically. And somewhere along there, I decided to have two kids and add a little bit more stress to my life, and to the point where I was chronically ill. I had respiratory chronic issues that were way worse than any 30-year-old should be going through. All kinds of medications, rounds of antibiotics, nothing was doing it until 1 year. It got so bad that it went all throughout the winter and it stayed in the summertime. I'm like, I need to do something. And that's when I found a friend that is a chiropractor. And she says, well, have you tried food intolerance testing? I'm like, no, but hey, I can't lose anything. Well, it was gluten that was doing
Mm,
it, among many other things that I took out. And I became passionate like you. I'm like, how is it that we don't know that food is medicine truly? How
mm-hmm.
is it that we don't know that there are so many things that we can do holistically to take care of ourselves rather than wait for a pill to fix us? Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
So very, very amazing. So I did the same thing. I actually became so passionate about it that I became a certified integrative nutrition health coach.
Yes.
More so to just make it official and understand how lifestyle can affect your health in my families more than to make a business out of it. But anyway, it permeates everything that I do.
Yeah. Love that.
Amazing. So let me ask you something. You decide to go into breath work. How did you branch out? How did you educate yourself? And how are you now using that for others?
So breathwork is my lead now. Fitness has become secondary service, and read a lot of books, learned from a lot of different individuals. And during shutdown, that's pretty much all I was doing is educating myself. And after shutdown, I started teaching and creating courses online. And so I've got some online courses out there for breathwork. Um, and a buddy of mine who was building an app, a breathwork app, got a hold of me at one point after shutdown, and he saw how far I'd come with my expertise in it in a quick time, and he's like, "Hey man, I need some help with this. You want to take a look at this project and see if you want to be a part of it?" So I did, and I in that project I joined in on. I was COO on that project for 2 years and 2.5 years, and it became what is now one of the leading breathwork apps in the world. And we've got practitioners from all around the globe. We've got some big name practitioners on there in the health or in the breathwork world. And so that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from those people, from those other um, breath workers from around the globe, made some really cool connections that I still have. And we still, as a tribe, we get together on Zoom a couple times a month and share wins and share what's going on in the industry and how we're developing the app and everything like that. So that's how that became a project for a while, and I'm still involved in that. I'm still providing content for that, and I teach a lot locally in different situations. I've got a training that I'm doing tomorrow for yoga instructors and how to use breath work in yoga sessions. Um, like I said, I've got online courses, and I see clients privately once in a while when it's the right situation. But a lot of my stuff is product based right now, so people have easy access to it. So I've got a book and courses, the app. And so just getting the magic of what power we hold simply by paying attention and consciously breathing, uh, how that can influence and change your whole entire system. Because whether you consciously do it or unconsciously do it, every time you breathe, you're affecting your nervous system. And it's really cool knowing how to do it in a way that you have control over and where you get to decide how you want your nervous system to respond and react given any situation. So my tagline, I love that you use the tagline, there's a breath for that, because there is. And it started in the kitchen in my house. And my wife, I don't know, something would come up. And I'd be like, babe, there's a way to breathe that can help that.
That's cute.
And so it became my tagline, and I love it for that reason. And so breathwork is my lead, and I do speaking engagements. I've been working with the school systems a lot. And the last 4 years, I've been brought into the high school here to teach the high schoolers, the sophomores. I come in a couple times throughout the semesters to work with them on it. Grade school educators have brought me in, college level educators have brought me in, and people are really becoming aware of the magic of breathing consciously. It's
How
really cool to
amazing.
see.
How amazing. This is amazing at so many levels.
Hmm.
You talk about going into high schools and doing this and doing that. And that's one of the synchronicities that brought you to my life was that you went to the high school. My son Drew is a sophomore, and he came home and said, Mom, you wouldn't believe it. There's this breathwork guy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been hearing about him. So anyway, teenagers think that something is valid if they hear it from somebody other than their mom, right?
Yep.
So it was great for me to hear that something that is not mainstream, like breath work, and as you said, it can open your gate into spirituality, health, wellness, so many things, is becoming more accepted in
Hmm.
all these different areas. It's yes, it's
I
fabulous.
love it is. I love that shift that we're seeing, that holistic living is the more sustainable way to live a healthy, long lifestyle. It's like none of this stuff is new. Breathwork isn't new, right? Our ancestors have been using it for thousands of years. But people like Wim Hof have broke the ice for us
Pun
begin
intended.
to begin to
Good.
hear about it. And when we were building the breathwork app and company, we would liken it to where yoga was 15, 20 years ago. But, it's catching fire so quickly because of how easy it is and how effective it is. And plus technology just helps spread that like this. When yoga started becoming mainstream, this wasn't an option for people to hear about it. And
Yes.
so now breathwork's becoming mainstream in a fast way. Professional athletes are really taking it um, on board as part of their performance enhancement, and school systems. When I was building this company or this app, helping build it, it's not fully mine. Uh, I learned that in Europe, they have been integrating breathwork into the school systems for the last 6 years. And
Amazing.
that blew my mind. And that set me on like a whole nother path of, okay, I'm passionate about getting into the schools to teach our younger generations how to self-regulate, because I know I could have used that big time when I was young. So that's part of the reason I'm showing up so much in the school systems.
That is so cool. And what you're saying is pretty consistent with my experience in spirituality. Uh, what we do unconsciously, or I'm sorry, what we do automatically, we're doing unconsciously. But we're creating, whether we're conscious or not. So, as you say, if you are breathing consciously, you can bring something that is natural to a whole other level to work for you, rather than just be there, latent and untapped.
Right.
I
Yeah.
like that. Josh, so for people and everybody here online, just so you know, I will go ahead and I'll add all of Josh's links, his website, his book. He's wrote a book. We'll talk more about that and his app, so that you don't have to worry about the links, and anything like that. But Josh, I would love to know for people that are all over the world,
Mhm.
how can they incorporate breath work in their lives? What is a practical way that they can do it on their own? And if they want more assistance, how can you help them from Spearfish, South Dakota?
Yeah, appreciate that. So functional breathing is huge. Just so, for example, our society, um, lots of research is still coming out with breathwork because it is becoming so mainstream. Lots of studies over the last 10 years that are pouring out. And so what we know is that majority of our society is dysfunctionally breathing, over breathing by 300%. And so what that means is uh, when a nurse takes your vitals, or I was trained as an EMT for a while, we're taught to count respirations between 16 and 20 breaths per minute. And that's 3 times as much as what science is showing us is the optimal breath rate. So we need this nice balance between carbon dioxide, which we thought was a waste byproduct, a waste gas. It's not, comes to find out, because we need carbon dioxide and oxygen to work together in this symbiotic swap that happens at the cellular level so that oxygen can enter the cell to do what it needs to do. So learning to breathe less is the short answer to your question. And if you can train, for those of you with high anxiety, there's going to take a little reprogramming of your nervous system, but it's possible because we're incredibly adaptable beings. And give it a couple weeks, but if you can get yourself to breathe in for a count of 5 and out for a count of 6 when you're at rest, that's going to give you that 5.5 breaths per minute. It's going to take you out of the general population who is over breathing by 300%. Because when we're breathing at 5.5 breaths a minute, that gives us 3 times less than what a nurse is trained to read or an EMT is trained to read for respirations per minute. So 5 in and 6 out is a really practical way to start, and making sure you're breathing from your belly. So dysfunctional breathing happens a lot when we breathe from our chest. And when we breathe from our chest, this is part of the reason I became sick. I had no idea how short and shallow I was breathing until I developed a lung infection deep in my lungs. But functional breathing looks like breathing from the belly and carrying it up into the chest like a wave. So you're starting with the belly, filling up the belly first, breathing horizontally before you breathe vertically, and using the diaphragm. So that's where the diaphragm comes into play, is breathing, belly breathing. It's diaphragmatic breathing, but it's cuter when you call it belly breathing.
Yes, it is.
So learning to belly breathe and learning to belly breathe slowly. When we do that, our body relaxes, our veins dilate, we get more blood flow to our brain, so our prefrontal cortex stays online better. We can think clearer, we move better, more consciously, more presently, and we don't spiral out as much into anxiety and depression, those other mental hurdles of humanity, if you will.
Hmm. So you mentioned stress as a stress reduction technique. You mentioned anxiety and depression. We
Mhm.
talked about your infection. What are other benefits that are lesser known in your industry?
Yeah, I got to circle back to some of the other question, but to
Oh,
answer
yes,
that,
yes.
to answer
There's so
that,
much to cover.
it's, yeah, there's a lot really when you geek out like on it like I do. Um, ADHD is a big issue we see with kids. So when I go into the school systems and I see these same issues with adults who just haven't learned since they were kids how to take care of this stuff, it just carries over into adulthood. The 3 things that continue to show up when we survey the students that they have issues with is focus, anxiety, and sleep. So breathing in a way, there's a breath for each one of those. There's a breath for that.
There's a
And
breath
there's
for that.
multiple breaths for that. But the simplicity of it is you only need a couple techniques. The rest of the stuff is kind of flashy, not all necessary. But if you really want to target something, that's when you need to know the specifics and nuances. But speaking generally, decreasing blood pressure is huge when you use breath consciously. Getting more oxygen flow to the brain, like I mentioned, sleeping better. When we sleep and we sleep with our mouth open, this is a different rabbit hole. Um, we put ourselves into a stress response more. So anytime we breathe with our mouth, we will eventually wind up in a stress response, and our sympathetic nervous system will heighten. So nose breathing as much as you can. The nose is for breathing and the mouth is for eating and talking. And the nose breathing will slow you down, so your blood vessels will dilate. Your body will get used to what we call air hunger. So that feeling when you're underwater and you need to come out and take a breath because you feel panicked. It's air hunger is what we call it. And it's just all it is a buildup of carbon dioxide in your blood and lungs. And you can build tolerance to it. And when you build tolerance to carbon dioxide, your system relaxes, things dilate, inflammation decreases, cognition increases, your immune system then upregulates if your inflammation is and your stress response is downregulated. So immunity boosts, detoxification, so many stats, but breath is 70% of our detoxification system.
Wow.
And so when we breathe, we're breathing out a heavier molecule, carbon dioxide, CO2 rather than just O2. So we're literally breathing out a heavier molecule. And there's some really cool math out there that shows you that to lose weight, you need to breathe more because you're breathing off the extra weight. Where does the fat go? Well, we breathe a lot of it out. That's why cardio works so well, because it gets us breathing more and we're respiring more. And then, of course, metabolism will increase and everything like that to benefit it. So let's see. Inflammation reduction and detoxification is huge. Respiratory, you can increase your lung capacity. I know I've read studies where up to 30% increases in lung capacity, which means if you're a performer, a singer, soloist, or even an athlete, like that means better performance. Mentally speaking, when you learn to build a little CO2 tolerance, that fear of I need to breathe, when you can control that, even for a second longer, you take back a piece of your nervous system and take back a piece of your stress response. So your anxiety decreases greatly. Spiritually, getting in tune with your intuition is a really big benefit from taking time to make this a practice. So these other things will come pretty quickly when you spend a few minutes in the morning just taking some deep full breaths and reoxygenating your body and getting oxygen flow to your brain. But there's so many benefits. I mean, I could keep rambling, but I'll stop there.
That's wonderful. It's amazing because we're not aware of these things. And if you hear of breath work and you know a little bit about it, you go into, oh yeah, well, it may help me calm down a little bit. But going into assisting with ADHD and
Mm-hmm.
when you and I started working together and I told you about my quest to reduce inflammation, I would have never guessed that that's one of the things that I could have gone to reduce
Yeah.
inflammation.
Yeah, it's
You
crazy.
think food and that's it.
Yeah, so when we breathe right and there's certain techniques, we can raise the pH of the body in a moment. And this stuff is holistic. So you got to hit that button multiple times to get long-term benefit and keep it regular, like brushing your teeth. It's holistic practice. Uh, so
Highly recommended.
yeah, but you can greatly reduce inflammation. And it's incredible once you know how. Breath for me, I'd say it's the ultimate biohacking tool. Like for me, I've gone through the gauntlet of all the fad diets. I've learned about all of them so I could teach them to clients and help them navigate if that's something that was appropriate for them. But I've I've regressed to the foundation, if you would, of just breathing right, because it is the first rung on the ladder that we have access to for free. And it's the first thing we do when we get to Earth. And it's the last thing we do before we leave. all these breaths in between you can use consciously and tactfully. So inflammation reduction is honestly really huge, because messing with the pH of the body is something that happens when you're breathing in certain ways as well. Yeah.
Incredible. That's
And
pretty
to get
amazing.
so to get sorry, I'm rambling here, but to
Thank you.
yeah, the to learn from me from Spearfish, I have three different courses, breathwork courses online on Udemy is where they're housed. One of them is a breathwork boot camp where I just kind of take you through everything in a condensed way that's an immersion into breath. Then there's I designed a course that's breathwork for ADHD. So helping to cultivate more focus, knowing how to hone your focus, and knowing how to activate the drugs within our body that those prescription drugs also activate in our body. Like we have receptors on our cells for those ADHD drugs because we can make them in our body ourselves. It's just knowing how to activate dopamine and adrenaline, which are the main two neurotransmitters and chemicals from those drugs, to enhance your focus. And so the third course that I just released is using breath to enhance performance, and using breath work in ways that, like we talked about, increase lung capacity and build longer endurance in athletes and things like that. So those are all online. The best place to find all this stuff and to even reach me is through Instagram or Facebook. Uh, all the links are there. We can direct message, and everything you need from me is housed there simply.
Beautiful. I want to talk a little bit about what we are doing together so that people get an idea of how you can work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I found Josh again through word of mouth. Spearfish is a small town. And then ultimately, because he came to the high school and Drew came talking about him. That coincided with my whole finding out that I needed to do something about inflammation and stagnation in my life. I had already started doing a little bit more since the spring on that front, but it's so interesting. You know what you need to do, and you don't do it. And sometimes you don't know. There were
Yeah.
things obviously that I didn't know, but there are things that I do know and I wasn't doing them. But once you have the accountability, once you have somebody there helping you, reminding you of what you know, reminding you of the importance of consistency, then you tend to show up for yourself. And that's what I'm doing with Josh. So Josh now has this program. It's via an app where he creates a workout for you that is tailored to whatever your needs are. And there is more than just the workout. He has three different levels at which you can engage. And I decided I'm in his remedial class. So I went for the, it's like, give me please as much help as you can give me. So anyway, through that app, it doesn't matter where in the world you are, he will communicate with you with the app and WhatsApp to keep you on track. And what this does for him is it allows him to expand not only from spearfish, but also to help more people all over the world. So
Yeah.
if you guys are interested in learning more, I invite you to connect with him. Again, we'll provide his information. I am in the beginning of mine, but I am engaged, which is a miracle in and of itself that I am actually engaging, because it is very easy to put a gazillion excuses to not show up for yourself. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Carol.
much. Josh, can you please talk about your book?
Sure thing. The book I wrote uh, was last year. What year is this? 24?
Before the last time I checked.
Yeah. So last year, after I stepped out of my COO role with the Breath Source, is that breathwork app I helped build, stepped out of that to focus more locally. I was just moving through the detachment of that one afternoon, and it's like I had all this backlog of information and knowledge that I needed to get out. So I could feel it there. And then one afternoon, I sat down in front of my computer and I just let it come out, and it just all came out in an afternoon, just all the main points. And it's everything from my fitness background and from my, so the book is called Igniting Humans, Breathwork, Mindset, and Wellness. And it's all my golden nuggets from the last 16 years in the fitness and wellness industry into one book. And it's not big. It's an hour and a half read. I talked to somebody earlier this week who read it, and they were like, I got the book. I saw it was only like 50 pages, and I was like, yes. And
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Because
yeah,
the average attention span of the human being is quite short, right?
right. And I wanted to
Hmm.
play to that because I myself, I just want to know what I need to know, and I'll go execute. So the book I wrote is really more like a how-to manual on what to pay attention to with breath work to get baseline health and wellness going. Um, Mindset, what to pay attention to with your thought patterns, and then in wellness, what's important in wellness to create this foundation of sustainability. So for me, consistency is different than sustainability. And I mean, that's probably obvious when you hear it, but in order for you to have a sustainable, healthy life, you can't be burning yourself out with habits that you have. So in this book are hard hit points of, do XYZ, here's how to do XYZ for you to establish some foundation that's sustainable for you. And that book's on Amazon right now, and Kindle, of course. And Igniting Humans is the title there. So thank you.
Well,
That was a fun book to write.
good for you. You may not be aware of this, but when something comes like that and you download it in that way, that's called channeling. So there you go.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Carol.
Ah, you're so
That's
welcome.
fun.
And actually, it's very interesting because I shared with you that I'm not trained in breath work. I loved that I found you and your app now and go more into it. I am I'm a nerd and I am a self-proclaimed nerd. So I'm super excited about this because I realize now that I have been doing that naturally in order to channel.
Yes.
So right before I go into channeling, because I can channel with my eyes open, but I don't do it because it distracts me, especially if you are reacting to what I'm saying.
Hmm.
I can get in the way. And for channeling, you really need to stay out of the way. It's not about you. You just need to let the stream of consciousness come through. The last thing I do before the channeling begins is I exhale, but I exhale more than I inhale. And it just keeps going and it just keeps going. It's almost like like you say, like that feeling when you're underwater
Hmm.
and then the channeling comes through.
Wow.
So it's very
Cool.
interesting to hear you say that because I just do it. I wasn't aware of why, but with what you are saying, I can understand why it alters my state of consciousness.
Absolutely. A lot of breath work is so innate that we do as humans automatically to deal with stress, or for example, like um, humming. Humming is a great way to soothe the vagus nerve and to boost nitric oxide. And we hum sometimes when naturally when we're stressed. We'll take a deep breath and we'll go,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because we know innately that it soothes the vagus nerve. But to do it consciously and to know why, like you're explaining, gives yourself new power.
very,
So exhaling from the nose or mouth, it depends on the technique. But if you can nose breathe the entire time, that's going to be way more beneficial because exhaling through the nose, you capture the humidity from the breath rather than blowing out the water. So you retain more, uh, what do I want to say, more fluids. And we produce nitric oxide when we're breathing through the nose. So we'll capture more nitric oxide if we continue to breathe through the nose.
so interesting. And that's exactly what I do right as I go into channeling.
I
How
love
awesome.
that.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
It's just fine tuning the radio dial.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And it's very natural. It may not seem normal these days, but it is very natural.
Thank you for helping to normalize it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, I would love to open this time for questions. You guys, if you would please type them in the Q&A. I will read them to Josh so he gets a breather here,
Thank you.
pun intended. The first question on the Q&A is from Utah. She's in Germany, and she's saying, I'm convinced how incredibly beneficial breath work is. However, my question is how to best bring fun and joy to a daily breathwork routine so that we keep at it. Maybe combining it with body moves, music, or how do you keep the passion for the daily practice in yourself and your clients alive or
Awesome.
incentive?
Love that question. So, yeah, we can get bored with the same old thing. That's part of the reason I wanted to learn so much about it. There's hundreds of different breathing techniques, so I can mix and match and synthesize my own stuff on at will and on the spot. But music helps. I do have a playlist on Spotify. Thank you, Carmen.
Carmen
Carmen.
is on the ball.
So music helps a lot, and breathing to rhythm is fun because once you learn just a few techniques, you can play one of your favorite songs and breathe in rhythm to it. One, it's fun, it brings joy. Two, you're breathing consciously. And three, breathing in rhythm, you're going to build some heart mind coherence. So that's another really cool thing is that when we breathe in a rhythm for a certain amount of time, our brain and our heart sync wavelengths. And that means better emotional regulation, all kinds of cool stuff. So, learning, I would advise you to learn a handful of your favorite techniques, play some music, and breathe in rhythm to your music. Also, Kriya. Kriya is a fun form of breath work that involves movement. So doing things like there's like rotational work, uh, there's all kinds of cool kriyas that give you movement with the breath pattern to keep things interesting.
Very cool. Thank you for your question. That's a really great question, Utah. Anyone else, if you have questions, please type them on the Q&A because we might miss them on the chat. So that would be very helpful. In the meantime, Josh, I want to ask you, you said something that really intrigued me, which I appreciate as well. And it is that there's a lot of hoopla out there, and it's more show than really function.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody goes out and is looking for stuff, how can one discern what is really, really helpful and basic and foundational and what is hoopla?
Good. Thank you for bringing that up. So when I first started in breath work, I was attracted to the sexy side of it as well. It's attention grabbing. It's Wim Hof is incredible with the feats that he's performed, and there's a lot of attention there. So what I've learned from where I started to where I've come is that the the hyperventilation work, there's a lot of caution to that work because it can spike your anxiety, it can spike stress if your nervous system isn't used to it. So the slow breathing patterns are where you're going to find a lot more peace. Uh, and I would just caution to when you're out looking for breath work, there's a lot on YouTube, and a lot of those people on YouTube are in our app. And if you go get that app, it'll keep things fun and interesting. But you'll also learn some really good foundations and what's trivial breath work and what's foundational breath work. So I would caution anyone watching this who's unfamiliar with it to the hyperventilation work. There's a lot of benefit in hyperventilation work in small doses. We're overbreathing and hyperventilating as a society already. And a lot of our world is designed in the stress response. So we need to layer in almost 2 times as much rest and digest to our stimulating world. So breathing slower, breathing lighter is going to help you heal better, is going to help you increase immunity. And I would, like I said, caution to all of those highly activation breathing techniques, useful in small doses. And I guess, did I answer your question?
Yes, it
Got
really
lost
did.
there.
No,
Okay.
no, no, it really does help because like anything, right? There's a lot of stuff out there and it doesn't
Hmm.
mean that it's helpful. It's just out
Right.
there. It doesn't mean that it's helpful.
Yeah, and you can get high doing breath work. We have chemicals in our body that can put us in an altered state. And um, that's nice. It feels euphoric, but it's not where life happens. And so, doing those once in a while for uh, altered states, downloads, higher reaches into consciousness are totally fine as long as you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But you can also get there through breathing light, breathing slow, and diving deep.
Well, and the truth is that we're an overstimulated society as it is. So
Yeah,
as you say, we probably would reap more benefit if we actually slow down.
absolutely. Our kidneys would love it.
Yeah. We have a question from Chris. She's in Belgium. She's asking, I did breath therapy and I had to breathe with my mouth wide open to let out all the emotions.
Mhm.
It was so important that I learned to do so to let go of control. Is it something that recognize? Is it something that recognize? I wonder what she means.
Is it something that is recognized? Maybe.
Yes, yes, maybe that's what she means.
Okay.
So
So
letting the emotions go through your mouth wide open.
yeah, there's benefit there for sure. When we hold our emotions, so energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just transfers. And when we hold an emotion in, it gets locked in our body and it starts causing damage over time. So there are breathing techniques, somatic breathing techniques. And this is part of the flashy sexiness of breathwork that people see out there is people having these huge releases. It looks almost demonic in a ways, but I've been there. There's nothing demonic going on. It's just an emotional release, an energy stuck energy release where people are like shaking. I've hit my legs before during one of those sessions. So there is benefit, like I said, to that kind of work, to open mouth breathing, to it will, what it does is it amplifies your sympathetic response. And after the mind freaks out a little bit about the sensations that are happening in the body, the emotions start to surface and release. And so there's a lot of benefit in that kind of work. And those are one of those small dose cases that I would advise people to be cautionary of, especially if you have high blood pressure. If you're pregnant, I wouldn't do that at all. We just don't know enough about the fetus yet in those situations. And they can, so those types of sessions, and I don't know if this was your experience, hopefully there was follow-up and integration to that experience for you. Those experiences can throw people into the dark side a little while. It'll surface some shadow, and if you don't integrate and follow up with that work, it can leave you in the dark
It's
for a
like
bit.
opening a can and leaving it open, right?
Yeah, it is. So there has to be integrative work to follow up on those. Those huge emotional release sessions are great if you're somebody who just doesn't know how to emote. They'll get you there.
Hmm. Thank you. Very
Yeah,
interesting. We have a question from Leila here in Belgium. She
nice.
says, Hi, thank you so much for the interesting conversation and sharing your passion. Have you heard of people healing back injuries with breath work?
Yes, with caveats. So I threw a disc out, bulged a disc earlier this year, and it was a combination of knowing how to breathe and knowing how to move. And I healed that, fixed it myself. I've got scoliosis, so my ribs pop out a lot. And I know how now to breathe in a way. Mostly it's taking a full inhale for me and holding and then adjusting a certain area of my spine to get the ribs to slide back into place. So I would have to know more about the back injury that you're speaking to. But Pain reduction is possible with breath work, as well as inflammation reduction that we talked about. And if you combine those two correctly, for a bulging disc, for example, reducing inflammation will help allow that disc to slide back into place.
It's crazy. That's crazy. Sounds
There's a breath.
painful.
There's a breath for that.
There's a breath for that. There's a
Yeah.
breath for that. I love it. So catchy. Anyone on YouTube, any questions before we wrap up this awesome conversation with Josh?
Whoever that was in Belgium, if you would like to reach out to me on Instagram, send me a message. I can probably provide more guidance.
Awesome. And that was Layla. Layla, he's also
Layla.
spirit led now, so that's another way. But if you are not on Instagram,
True.
I'm not sure if you are. So there's a lot
Yeah,
of peeps in this community that are not on Instagram.
got it. So they're in your
Layla is
framework. In is that what's the platform?
Mighty Networks.
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm in there as well
Okay,
with all
good
of you.
deal. Awesome. Anybody here? We don't have any questions on the YouTube side. Anybody here on Zoom have any questions before we wrap up? Seems like you have covered a lot of information for
Mhm.
people.
Thank you for allowing me. I love geeking out on it if you can't tell.
Geeking out. I love it.
Yeah.
A man after my own heart. I love it. All right. Well, it seems like people have had their questions answered. So, Josh, thank you so much
Mhm.
for being here, peeps. The most exciting part here is that Josh is going to be one of our practitioners in our Spearfish Canyon retreat that starts this coming Monday. So I'm very excited for this collaboration that is just budding up.
Mhm.
So thank you again for taking the time to be with us here today and with us in the canyon next week.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to all of it. Thank you for having
Wonderful.
me.
It's been such a pleasure. Okay, guys, thank you for being here. Again, I always say it, you can be anywhere else, and you decided to be here with us. Much gratitude for you. Have a wonderful rest of